Ferrari's new suspension for 2026 is not simply a technical update, it is a philosophical correction. After a season in 2025 defined by inconsistency, narrow operating windows, and repeated compromises, Maranello have accepted that the core problem was not aerodynamic ambition but mechanical misunderstanding. Under Loïc Serra's leadership, Ferrari have rebuilt the suspension concept from first principles, using the failures of the SF25 as a reference rather than something to hide from. The SF25's double pull rod lay outlooked sophisticated, but in practice it exposed Ferrari's biggest weakness. The car demanded extreme precision to work, and the moment conditions changed, grip vanished. Ride height sensitivity became unmanageable. Plank were forced conservative setups, and both drivers were left chasing balance rather than exploiting performance. The suspension did not forgive errors, and in modern Formula One, unforgiving cars rarely win championships. For 2026, Ferrari have taken a decisive step away from that philosophy. Project 678 will feature push-rod suspension at both the front and the rear, making it the first Ferrari to adopt a push-rod rear layout since 2010. This is not a return to the past, but a move driven by packaging freedom, mechanical clarity, and aerodynamic stability. Push-rod geometry allows Ferrari to reposition internal components more efficiently, reduce structural constraints, and stabilize the car's behavior across a wider range of ride heights. What truly separates Ferrari's new suspension from conventional thinking is how it is being used. Loïc Serra, a vehicle dynamics specialist by background, has placed tire behavior at the center of the entire car concept. Rather than designing suspension to simply support aerodynamic load, Ferrari are designing it to actively manage how the tire works, how it deforms, and how it recovers grip during critical phases of the lap. Of the most ambitious elements is Ferrari's pursuit of control mechanical flexibility within the front suspension, particularly in the first link of the upper wishbone. This is not uncontrolled bending or softness. It is engineered compliance that responds differently depending on load direction and speed. The objective is to generate camber recovery exactly when the tire needs it, improving front end bite on entry while maintaining stability through mid-corner. This concept goes straight to the heart of Ferrari's biggest weakness in 2025. A weakness that repeatedly surfaced in driver feedback but was never truly solved. Both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc described the same fundamental issue from different perspectives. A front end that could not be trusted. On corner entry, especially in medium-speed corners, the car oscillated between understeer and sudden bite. That inconsistency forced hesitation. Drivers could not commit fully because they never knew which version of the front axle they were going to get. In modern Formula One, that split second of doubt is devastating, not just for lap time, but for tire life and confidence over an entire stint. Ferrari's new suspension philosophy is explicitly designed to eliminate that uncertainty by creating a front axle that loads progressively, communicates clearly through the steering, and behaves predictably across a wider operating window. Achieving that behavior is extraordinarily complex because Ferrari are not simply softening the suspension or changing geometry in isolation. The system must remain fully compliant with FIA regulations across all static inspections, load tests, and dynamic operating conditions, while still exploiting the small areas where controlled deformation is permitted. This means designing components that behave rigidly when measured in prescribed directions, but respond differently under real-world forces that occur at speed. Ferrari believe they have identified that narrow and extremely valuable window. Early indications suggest the concept has already passed initial legality assessments without raising red flags, which in itself is significant given how aggressively the team is pushing mechanical concepts for 2026. What makes this suspension rethink truly decisive is that it cannot be separated from aerodynamics. Under the 2026 regulations, active aerodynamics will constantly alter the load distribution on the car. As the car switches between low drag and high downforce modes, vertical and longitudinal forces will change far more abruptly than in the current era. If the suspension cannot stabilize the platform during those transitions, aerodynamic performance becomes erratic and difficult to exploit. Ferrari's solution is to let the suspension absorb and smooth those changes mechanically, preventing sudden load spikes from destabilizing the chassis and collapsing aerodynamic efficiency mid-corner or on corner entry. Loïc Serra's influence is particularly visible in how Ferrari are approaching the front of the car as a complete system rather than a collection of independent parts. Reports suggest that more than 50 front-wing concepts have already been analyzed, not in search of a single peak downforce solution, but to understand how airflow behaves as the suspension moves and the tire deforms. This is a direct lesson from 2025, where Ferrari often achieved strong wind tunnel results only to see those gains disappear once the car ran at realistic ride heights on track. For 2026, no aerodynamic concept is being evaluated without understanding how it interacts with suspension kinematics and tire behavior. At the rear of the car, the move to a push-rod suspension layout unlocks a series of packaging and performance benefits that Ferrari simply did not have last season. Tighter packaging around the gearbox and diffuser improves airflow quality and reduces sensitivity to plank wear, one of the most damaging issues of 2025. Ferrari were repeatedly forced into lift and coast strategies and conservative ride heights to remain legal, sacrificing performance before the race even began. Or a stable rear platform means Ferrari can finally operate closer to the optimum without living on the edge of disqualification, restoring freedom in setup choices. The suspension's influence extends beyond pure grip and balance into energy efficiency. A critical battleground under the 2026 regulations. Improved mechanical grip allows Ferrari to rely less on aggressive aerodynamic solutions that increase drag. This aligns perfectly with the new power unit rules, where electrical deployment, recovery, and overall efficiency across the lap matter more than raw peak load. Mechanical grip becomes a performance multiplier, enabling better energy management rather than forcing the car to compensate aerodynamically. Ferrari's fourth-place finish in 2025 has also shaped this development path in a tangible way. The increased wind tunnel and CFD allowance that comes with that position is being used aggressively to simulate suspension, aerodynamic, and tire interaction in unprecedented detail. Rather than committing early to a single concept, Ferrari are running multiple mechanical scenarios in parallel. Data, not belief, is dictating decisions. This marks a significant departure from previous seasons where Ferrari often locked themselves into concepts before fully understanding their consequences. Crucially, Ferrari are not committing to a single interpretation of this suspension philosophy. Multiple variants are already in development, ready to be deployed depending on what early track data reveals. This modular approach represents a cultural shift inside Maranello. Ferrari are no longer betting an entire season on one idea and hoping it works. They are building flexibility into the project from the outset, allowing rapid adaptation without structural upheaval. Lewis Hamilton, this suspension philosophy could be transformative. His driving style depends heavily on confidence under braking and precision on corner entry. The SF25 never gave him that trust, forcing him into defensive driving and constant compromise. A front end that loads predictably and communicates clearly could allow Hamilton to reconnect with the strengths that defined his career, especially in a regulation set where driver input and adaptability will once again play a decisive role. Charles benefits in a different but equally important way. His performance advantage often comes from consistency over a stint rather than knife-edge aggression. The new suspension aims to reward repeatability, protect the tires, and maintain balance across long runs over a full season. That consistency often proves more valuable than isolated peaks of pace, particularly in races decided by strategy and tire degradation. Ferrari have also fundamentally changed how suspension development interacts with driver feedback. Instead of filtering comments through separate departments, Hamilton and LLC now feed directly into cross-functional groups combining vehicle dynamics, aerodynamics, and tire specialists. This reduces interpretation loss and accelerates meaningful changes, ensuring that feedback translates into concrete design adjustments rather than abstract discussion. There is no illusion inside Ferrari that this approach is safe. Controlled flexibility invites scrutiny. Aggressive geometry increases complexity. Every new concept introduces risk. But Ferrari have accepted that caution delivered nothing in 2025. Playing safe produced a car that looked refined on paper and collapsed under real-world conditions. What Ferrari have revealed about their 2026 suspension is therefore not just a technical update, but a statement of intent. They are no longer designing a car that demands perfection to function. They are designing one that tolerates reality, variability, and imperfection. For this suspension performs as intended, it will not announce itself with one spectacular qualifying lap. Its true impact will be felt in consistency, confidence, and adaptability across an entire season. Those qualities rarely dominate headlines, but they are the foundations on which championships are built. That is why Ferrari's new suspension can genuinely be described as insane, not because it breaks the rules, but because it breaks with everything that failed them last season. And if Loïc Serra's philosophy proves correct, Ferrari may finally have a car that works with its drivers rather than against them when it matters most.